Thanks to BetterHelp for sponsoring this video. The post-credit scene of the Echo season finale just showed us how the Kingpin is going to become the MCU's new street-level Thanos, and he's going to be the villain that brings together Daredevil, Black Suit Spider-Man, the Punisher, and more for one of the biggest battles the Marvel Universe has ever seen. Welcome back to ScreenCrush, I'm Ryan Airy. So the Echo series ended up being kind of a mixed bag. I was really pleased with the first few episodes, but come episodes 4 and 5, the show really started to fall short, probably because of budget constraints. And we discussed all that and where the show went wrong in more detail in our podcast, so be sure to check that out.
We have a podcast?
Yeah, I told you this already. It's called ScreenCrush Rewind. It's on all major podcast platforms and here on YouTube. And we also have a merch store, ScreenCrushMerch.com, where we've got some awesome new Echo, Daredevil, and Kingpin inspired merch. We've got The Return of the King, Echo in American Sign Language, Doug as Daredevil, Nelson and Murdoch Law and Order parody, and this Nelson and Murdoch with the vigilante scales of justice. Shopping our merch store is the best way to directly support our channel. We design all the merch ourselves, and we really appreciate your support. And also, we have our very first live show coming up on February 22nd in Brooklyn, New York. You can meet me and the team, see exclusive videos. It's going to be a lot of fun. Links for everything are below. So while the show Echo wasn't everything that we hoped it would be, we do have a lot of faith in what's coming next with Daredevil Born Again. This is an 18-episode series that promises to be a return to the heyday of the beloved Netflix series featuring the Devil of Hell's Kitchen once again going head-to-head with his greatest foe, Wilson Fisk.
Beat you!
Now, during the writers and actor strikes, production was halted on Daredevil Born Again, and The Hollywood Reporter reported that during that time, Kevin Feige took a look at what they'd shot so far and determined that it was not working. So, since then, the series has been given a new direction that I think will give us the same greatness we came to expect from the first 3 seasons of the show. And there's actually something very important that Maya, Matt, and Peter Parker all have in common. They all suffer from survivor's guilt. Maya blames herself for her mother's death, and no matter what, she will always feel like a piece of her is missing, literally because of her missing leg, but also figuratively because she was robbed of her mother when she was still a child. And like in our own personal way, we can all relate to loss, and we all need to find ways to cope with some grief or even anxiety. In fact, if you find yourself depressed or anxious, I'm here to tell you, guys, therapy helps. And maybe, like me, you're from a rural area, or you just think it's impossible to find a therapist. But that's why we are proud to be sponsored by BetterHelp for this video. BetterHelp makes therapy more affordable and accessible, and they make the process easy because it is online and remote. By filling out a few questions, BetterHelp can match you with a professional therapist in as little as a few days. In our description, we have a link, and if you click that, you'll not only help support our channel, but you'll also get 10% off your first month at BetterHelp. And guys, I cannot even tell you how important this is for you. If you're feeling anxious or depressed, or even if you just wake up every day feeling like something isn't right, then therapy can help you like it did for me. And finding a therapist is like dating. You may not fit well with the first one you try, so you can switch to a new one with no additional cost. You don't have to stress about insurance or who's in your network or anything like that. So again, if you are struggling, consider online therapy with BetterHelp. Click the link in the description or visit betterhelp.com/ScreenCrush for 10% off your first month today. Now, back to what I was saying. So the post-credit scene of Echo teased Kingpin's run for mayor of New York City, just like he did in the comics.
But there's still a window of opportunity. That's what the poll is telling us. It could be anybody's race.
Now, in the Daredevil series, we saw Kingpin use his money to buy power and influence to build his wealth and grow his criminal empire. He's paid off cops, FBI agents, politicians, judges, you name it. And that worked for a while. But with these meddling superheroes at every turn, Kingpin's going to need to rise to a higher level of power. Becoming mayor of New York City will give Kingpin the ability to sway public opinion through lies and manipulation as a manipulative politician. We saw in season 3 of Daredevil that Kingpin was able to convince a crowd of protesters to flip from hating him to loving him. And then he turned their vitriol on the justice system and on Daredevil.
The people in power decided to tear me down with false allegations. They sent someone to frame me, Daredevil.
Kingpin is going to lie his way to the top of the polls, and in his campaign, he's going to lambaste these vigilantes as being the problem. He'll talk about how ever since that warmonger elite Tony Stark announced himself to the world as Iron Man, the world just has never been the same. He's going to rail against the Avengers and how these so-called heroes and their destructive antics have invited chaos into his beloved city. He'll concede that he too has blood on his hands, but he'll argue that the heroes have more blood. He'll campaign on banning vigilantism and strengthening law enforcement that he will control by appointing his own chief of police.
Oh, who's the chief of police gonna be?
It's gonna be a decorated war vet and former FBI agent. That's right, I'm talking about Benjamin Poindexter.
Who are you? I'm Daredevil.
Poindexter and Kingpin had it out hard in season 3 of Daredevil. Poindexter is very mentally unstable, and he had convinced himself that he was in love with this woman that he'd never met named Julie. Long story short, to further manipulate Poindexter, Kingpin had her killed. And in response, we see Poindexter attempt to kill Kingpin's beloved Vanessa. In their battle, we see Kingpin shatter Poindexter's spine. And in the final scene of Daredevil Season 3, we see that Poindexter survived his injuries, and we got a tease that he would be returning as the supervillain Bullseye. But maybe we could see him and Fisk bury the hatchet and work together to achieve common goals. Kingpin knows that he needs somebody he can manipulate, someone who isn't shy about breaking the rules, and someone who can hold their own against the likes of Daredevil and other heroes. Poindexter could also serve as the police commissioner and direct his police force to arrest other crime lords, clearing the way for Fisk's empire to flourish. And he could also direct the police to stay clear of the mayor's business dealings. But then, also as Bullseye, he could lead a task force of supervillains that hunt down and arrest or even murder vigilantes who are breaking the law.
Wait, what laws are they breaking?
Well, the first thing Fisk would do as mayor is pass a law that bans superheroes, vigilantes, or even the use of superpowers within New York City. See, I think that Daredevil Born Again could end with us seeing Matt Murdock's identity revealed to the world by Fisk, and then Matt being arrested for vigilantism. We've seen Daredevil put Kingpin in prison twice, and now with Fisk being mayor, it'll be Matt who we see incarcerated. This would be taken from the brilliant Daredevil run by David Mack and Alex Maleev, where basically this happens and we see Matt Murdock try to survive in prison with his public identity having been revealed to the world. Now, all of this would also parallel Spider-Man No Way Home, when Peter Parker's identity is revealed to the world and he is framed for Mysterio's crimes.
What the f?
In that movie, Matt Murdock steps up and serves as Peter Parker's lawyer.
How did you just do that? I'm a really good lawyer.
So, with Born Again ending with Matt Murdock in prison for violating the mayor's new laws against vigilantism and superheroes, in the closing seconds of the season, he will get a visit from a young man who recently took a job at the New York Bulletin as a journalist and a photographer, a young guy named Peter Parker.
New York Bulletin? Peter Parker works at the Daily Bugle.
Well, the Daily Bugle is not a newspaper in the MCU. It's pretty much InfoWars. So there's no way Peter Parker would want to work there, especially after all the slander thrown his way by J. Jonah Jameson.
Governments around the world launch investigations into the murderer known as Spider-Man.
So instead, Peter will work for an actual newspaper, the same paper we saw Karen Page work at in the Daredevil series, and the same paper that played a major role in bringing down the Kingpin.
This could expose Fisk.
So Spider-Man 4 can then open with Peter Parker doing his Spider-Man thing on the streets of New York, and we can see Peter's perspective the moment Fisk was elected as mayor of the city, as well as the new mayor announcing the new law banning superheroes. Later, we'll see Spider-Man helping someone in need, but then he'll be cornered by Bullseye and his new task force of supervillains, characters like the Scorpion, the Shocker, and other villains that Spider-Man has locked up over the years.
Ooh, what about Vulture?
Well, the Vulture is still in that field explaining to Morbius who Spider-Man even is.
Has to do with Spider-Man, I think.
So Bullseye and the gang will attempt to place Spider-Man under arrest, and Spider-Man will escape, but just barely. Then we'll pick up where Daredevil Born Again left off. Peter will see on TV the arrest of Matt Murdock and the reveal that he is Daredevil, and we can even get a funny nod back to Matt catching the brick in No Way Home and have Peter mumble to himself, "Oh, that's how he did that." With Peter now working at the Bulletin, he will score an interview with the incarcerated Matt Murdock because the paper's new editor is none other than Karen Page. But Peter isn't really there for an interview. He is there to return the favor that Matt did for him in No Way Home by breaking Matt out of prison. But first, he has to try to remind Matt Murdock of who he even is. Remember, in No Way Home, Doctor Strange casts the Forget Peter Parker spell, meaning that Matt Murdock will have no recollection of Peter Parker. But when Peter explains to him everything that happened and how Matt was once his lawyer, we'll see Matt focus in on Peter's heartbeat and know that he isn't lying.
Yeah, but I know when they lie to me. Their heartbeats tell me.
So, despite Matt not remembering Peter Parker, he believes him because he can tell that Peter is telling the truth. When Peter says that he wants to help break Matt out of prison, Matt will thank him but decline the offer. He explains that if he breaks out of prison with the help of Spider-Man, they'll just be playing into the mayor's hand and giving Fisk the talking points that he needs to further demonize heroes. Matt says that if he's going to beat the Kingpin, then he's going to do it by proving to the people of New York who the Kingpin really is. Matt acknowledges that it's going to take time, but that he's got a lot of that now that he's in prison. Peter will ask Matt what he can do to help. Now keep in mind that at the end of No Way Home, Peter returned to his roots of being a neighborhood Spider-Man. So this new anti-superhero law has great effect on Peter. Matt's response will be that years back, the Bulletin played a key role in bringing down Fisk. Matt encourages Peter to gather photographic evidence against the Kingpin to help build his case so they can do it again. And Matt, with a wink and a nod, says that Peter's spider abilities could probably come in handy when it comes to getting in and out of places to gather evidence without being noticed. Peter agrees and begins his investigation. One night, while snooping around Fisk's tower, which by by the way, should totally be Avengers Tower. It would make total sense if Wilson Fisk, now trying to stage himself as a good guy, would have bought the tower that formerly housed Earth's mightiest heroes. So anyways, Peter's snooping around Fisk Tower, and he's going to come across a lab that features a lot of weaponry, costumes, and DNA samples taken from arrested heroes. And we'll also see the super soldier serum that was featured in Falcon and the Winter Soldier, confirming that Kingpin's new strength in the MCU comes from the same serum that made Captain America.
Don't leave, Eleanor.
So while snooping around the lab and taking photos, Peter will come in contact with a black moving goo.
Oh boy, here we go.
Yes, it's the symbiote that we saw left behind in the post-credit scene of No Way Home by Eddie Brock and Venom. And we'll get some short exposition scene later in the movie revealing exactly how Kingpin acquired the symbiote from Mexico. Maybe he had help from a certain Secretary of State who shares Kingpin's views on superheroes.
A great many people see you as heroes. There are some who would prefer the word vigilantes.
And what word would you use, Mr. Secretary?
How about dangerous?
With Peter no longer having his teched out Spider-Man suit and having downgraded to a standard fabric suit, the symbiote would be a much welcomed improvement, especially since Peter's been facing off against a team of supervillains who pretty easily overpower him. But the longer Peter wears this suit, the more violent and temperamental he becomes. So the next time he comes in contact with the mayor's team of hero hunters, he's not going to be pulling any punches. He will brutally beat Bullseye, Scorpion, Shocker, and the others within mere inches of their lives, and this is going to greatly impress the Kingpin. Kingpin will then attempt to recruit Spider-Man. He'll stoke his ego and say that there aren't many heroes like Spider-Man, and that if there were any downsides to this new law, it was the loss of the web swinger. But he would also gladly have Spider-Man become the new leader of his task force. Kingpin then gives him some politician-y speech about how he's not the bad guy here and that he's doing what he can to help the people and save the city. He'll try to say that he and Peter have a lot in common. You know, the "we're not so different, you and I" speech. Now the symbiote will be drawn to the Kingpin and his words about power and control being the key to peace, and the symbiote's control of Peter Parker will try to push Peter to take the Kingpin's offer. But Peter, of course, is going to overcome this urge and turn him down. And this is when the Kingpin will turn on him and reveal that he knows Peter has been watching him. He knows that Peter has been working with Matt Murdock on a case to bring him down, and also that he recognizes that alien suit. Kingpin will then tell Peter that he did a lot of digging to find out who Peter Parker really was, but that Peter appears to be truly alone in the world, and no one seems to know who the hell he is. A reference, of course, back to the Forget Peter Parker spell. Peter will quip back that he made a lot of sacrifices that Kingpin would never understand. Sacrifices that really did save the city and the world. And then Kingpin would snap back at Peter, saying he knows all about being alone, and that he has sacrificed plenty to get where he is and to get what he wants. Now it's at this moment that Kingpin will gesture to his henchmen, and then we'll see them bring out MJ and Ned. Peter will gasp, and MJ and Ned will have looks of fear and confusion on their faces. Kingpin will say it took a lot of digging, but he finally pieced together the life of the old Peter Parker, and he found his best friend and his girlfriend. He'll then say that strangely enough, they claim not to know who Peter is, and Kingpin says that he believes them. And Kingpin then says that he's not exactly sure why no one remembers Peter Parker, but that it probably has something to do with heroes playing with a power they didn't understand. A reference, of course, to his opinion on the dangers of superheroes and any power that he himself does not control. Kingpin tells Peter that if he doesn't capture all the remaining vigilantes in the city and bring them to him, then he will kill Ned and MJ, and he'll also see to it that Matt Murdock is executed in his prison cell. Peter reluctantly agrees. Kingpin gives Peter a list of names that Peter needs to bring in, dead or alive. Those names include Frank Castle, aka the Punisher, as well as Kate Bishop and Maya Lopez. And on that same sheet of paper, if you look closely, we'll see the names of Jessica Jones and Luke Cage. But next to their names, it says apprehended, showing us that the Kingpin has already arrested them.
Yeah, what about Ms. Marvel?
She is staying with Captain Marvel in Louisiana.
What about Iron Fist?
No. Peter's first stop is Rikers Island to meet with the incarcerated Matt Murdock, only this time he doesn't use the front door. We see Spider-Man with all his black suit might break down the wall of Matt's cell. The prison alarms sound and we can see the symbiote recoil before taking out the alarms. Matt asks Peter what he's doing there and says this isn't the way. Peter explains to Matt the situation with MJ and Ned, and this touches close to home with Matt because Kingpin has done the same thing to him with threats against Karen and Foggy. Peter tells Matt that he needs to leave with him now and help him bring down the Kingpin and save his friends. Peter knows that no one knows how the Kingpin operates better than Daredevil. Peter also tells Matt that if he doesn't help him, Peter will have no choice but to round up the names on that list and deliver them to Fisk. As the prison guards approach, Matt agrees to leave with Peter. Now, as the two make their way back to the city, Matt mentions that he'll need a suit and comments on Peter's new black suit, hinting at the fact that he knows it's affecting his mind. Peter responds viciously, telling Matt that he didn't bust him out just to talk. After a few moments of awkward silence, Peter says that he has a suit that Matt can borrow. We then cut to Matt wearing a very tight Spider-Man costume, a callback to that time in the comics when it was Peter Parker who donned the Daredevil suit. Matt says that he can't see, but he knows it looks ridiculous and opts instead to put on a black shirt, black pants, and a black mask, just like we saw him wear in seasons 1 and 3 of Daredevil. As the two begin to hash out their plan, Matt asks to see the list of names. Matt then suggests that they still seek out this list of heroes in order to join them in bringing down Fisk. The Punisher, of course, would jump at an opportunity to put a bullet in Kingpin's head, and so would Kate Bishop, except it'd be an arrow.
You know, some people have actually called me the world's greatest archer.
And of course, if you've seen Hawkeye and Echo, you will know that Maya will gladly join the cause of stopping her uncle's evil doings. So Spider-Man and Daredevil recruit their team and arrive at Fisk Tower. Having somewhat recovered from their fight with Spider-Man, we see Bullseye and the other villains go toe-to-toe with our heroes. And you know what? Screw it. I love Luke Cage and Jessica Jones. They broke them out of jail too, or maybe they weren't even in jail. They are also a part of this fight. It's a giant, super-powered, gritty, street-level melee. About halfway through the fight, we see Spider-Man and Daredevil break from the pack and go for Fisk. We then get the battle of a lifetime, brushing as close to an R rating as we can get in a Spider-Man film. Now Fisk, with his super soldier serum, puts up a good fight, but eventually he falls to his knees in defeat after a pummeling from Daredevil and Spider-Man. Daredevil stops fighting when he sees Fisk is done and Ned and MJ are safe, but Peter is still filled with rage that is being amplified by the symbiote, as well as the bottled up rage of having been alone this whole time following the events of No Way Home. Peter lays blow after blow into Kingpin's face. Now Daredevil tries to stop him, but Peter throws Daredevil into the wall, yelling for him to get off of me. Matt pleads with Peter to stop him and tells him this isn't the way. He reminds Peter that according to him, Matt was his lawyer, and if that's true, then it was because he knew that Peter Parker was a good man. And this is a callback to season 1 of Daredevil, where Matt says that he wants to exclusively represent innocent clientele.
My partner and I are having some disagreements over the direction of Nelson and Murdoch. I believe we're here to defend the innocent.
Peter stops punching Kingpin, but only for a moment. He tells Matt that the Peter Parker that he knew died that night at the Statue of Liberty. He then raises his fist to lay a final and fatal blow into the Kingpin's skull when we hear MJ say, "Peter." Peter turns and looks at her, and she's clutching her black dahlia necklace that he gave her in Far From Home, and that she was still wearing after the Forget Peter Parker spell in No Way Home. She says that she dreams about a boy whose face is a blur, a boy who made her laugh, a boy who made her feel like she could be herself. She dreams about soaring in the air above New York City. She dreams about being at the Statue of Liberty at dawn and feeling sad that there's something missing in her life. And every time she wakes up from these dreams, she is holding her necklace tight. And it wasn't until this moment that that blurry face has faded and that she sees clearly now that that boy is him. A tear rolls down her cheek and she says Peter again, but this time in a tone that says that she knows who he is. She finally remembers him. The bond between Peter and MJ was finally able to break through the spell. We then see Ned step forward and say Peter, followed by a faint smile. Peter lowers his fist and we see the symbiote suit begin to leave his body, symbolizing his rage falling away as he runs to hug Ned and MJ. We then hear Matt say, "Peter Parker, the brick through the window," showing that he too has broken past the spell and remembers Peter. This beautiful moment is then interrupted when we hear Kingpin say, "Well, isn't this nice?" only in a much deeper and alien-like tone. We then tilt up and we see the symbiote has latched itself onto Kingpin, giving us a huge Venom-like creature with Wilson Fisk at its core.
Oh, that's dumb.
Okay, fine. No Kingpin symbiote. I think it would have been cool though. We'll see the symbiote crawl onto the Kingpin, but then the Punisher comes in with a flamethrower and catches it on fire and kills it. Is that better?
Yeah, that's better. Or Punisher could become Venom.
Punisher becoming Venom? Also a movie I would watch. Fisk is then arrested again, but then we'll get a post-credit scene showing that he'll be receiving a pardon from the newly elected president, Thunderbolt Ross, teasing the upcoming Captain America New World Order. So guys, there's our pitch for how Echo can lead into Daredevil Born Again and Spider-Man 4. Big shout out to the writer of this video, Mr. Colton Ogburn, the guy who's trapped eternally in our television but doesn't know it, so please don't tell him. You can find links to his socials and mine below. So guys, let us know what you thought of this breakdown. Do you think that this is how this movie should go? Do you like Echo? Do you not like it? What do you want to see happen next in the MCU? Let us know in our socials or down in the comments. And if it's your first time here, please subscribe and smash that bell for alerts. For ScreenCrush, I'm Ryan Airy.